Please, there is no need for this. You are protected as Hatamoto.
For some reason, I just can't shake the memory of our first meeting.
鉄砲渡さるか! いいえ!
Yeah.
What is up, everybody? Jeremy Eisenfire here, and welcome to my episode 4 breakdown of Shogun, entitled The Eightfold Fence. The episode starts off with the small fishing village of Ajiro receiving word of Toranaga and Yabushigi's impending arrival, followed by a scene on the ship between Mariko and Fuji, where Mariko informs her that she is to become Blackthorne's new consort, a position that she is not too thrilled about, while Mariko herself is also in mourning after the supposed death of her husband Buntaro, who she assumes died in combat. But I get the feeling we have not seen the end of Buntaro, setting up what is undoubtedly going to be a very dramatic reunion between the two. And you definitely feel a bit for Fuji in this scene as well. Not only has she recently lost her husband and her newborn child, but now she is being forced into this pairing that she wants nothing to do with. But then the ship arrives in Ajiro with a sizable force gathered upon their arrival, with Toranaga delivering a rousing battle speech in order to inspire the men for the war that is undoubtedly on the horizon. And here we see another display of Toranaga commanding his troops with the fan that he carries on his person, and how the different movements indicate different commands to his troops, which is just another layer of accuracy that the show is implementing with its characters, as the historical character that Toranaga is based on, Tokugawa, is often depicted with a fan in hand commanding his troops. And if you want to learn a little bit more about the real Tokugawa and his early life leading up to the events in Shogun, definitely check out my Real Toranaga video in the description below. But next, we see Blackthorne attempting to return to his ship and retrieving his pistols, while inquiring about the whereabouts of his men, who Mariko explains have been moved to Ito for their protection. At which point, Mariko escorts Blackthorne to his new home, and informs him that Fuji is to be his new consort. With Blackthorne officially earning the rank of Hatamoto, he now has a certain station according to Mariko, a station that comes with certain benefits. But for Blackthorne, all he sees is another form of prison, just with better comforts. A situation that becomes even worse when Blackthorne finds out that Toranaga expects him to spend the next 6 months here training his regiment, all while surrounded by enemies. And now, with the title of Hatamoto, he will have an even bigger target on his back. So Blackthorne is definitely feeling more like a prisoner now than he ever has before, and is really getting the sense of just how little freedom he has here. But next, we get a scene of Yabushigi asking Omi if he has found the informant in the village who tipped off Toranaga about Blackthorne's arrival, who we find out in episode 1 was Mujari, the same villager who first translated for Blackthorne when he first washed up on shore, of which Omi has made zero progress in finding, much to Yabushigi's dismay. And for the moment, nothing seems to be going right for Yabushigi, as he is not only stuck between two feudal lords, but is also now under the assumption that Ashido believes he betrayed him as well. So things just continue to go from bad to worse for Yabushigi, and here we start to see some of the perils that happen when you continue to play both sides, when straddling the fence for too long can easily lead to one being impaled by it. But next, we get a really nice scene between Blackthorne and Mariko, with Mariko explaining the concept behind the Eightfold Fence, which is essentially a way for them to compartmentalize their emotions in order to hide what they are feeling in any given time. And you definitely get the sense that Mariko is repressing some trauma from her past, a trauma that we learn a little bit more about later on. The next morning, however, we get a standoff between Blackthorne and Omi, as Blackthorne refuses to give up his pistols, a situation that is cleverly diffused by Fuji, who convinces Blackthorne to hand over the pistols to her instead of Omi, while also standing up for Blackthorne in the process, a feat that Blackthorne is very impressed by. But next, we see the beginning of the training of Toranaga's regiment, where Yabushigi proceeds to ask Blackthorne a little bit about foreign tactics in warfare. But unfortunately, seeing as Blackthorne is a sea pilot and not a soldier, he is not very well versed in ground warfare. And here is where we see another display of Blackthorne's intelligence and his willingness to adapt on the spot. Seeing as there's not a whole lot he can teach them about ground warfare, he teaches them something that he does know a little bit about: naval tactics, and in particular, how they can be applied to help forces on the ground. Blackthorne proceeds to put on a demonstration of the power and accuracy of his cannons, which certainly impresses Yabushige and his men, as up until now, the Japanese believe the cannons to be wildly inaccurate. And here is where we see a good example of the difference in the technological advances of both nations as well, whereas something as simple as mathematics and trajectory can easily be applied to provide a more accurate shot on the cannons, something the Japanese just aren't aware of up until this point, which only further demonstrates how useful Blackthorne could truly be to Toranaga, which is something Blackthorne explains to Mariko in the following scene, as he tries to impress upon her the importance of a navy. And this is where we get one of the slight changes from book to show, whereas in the book it was actually Toranaga's idea that a navy would be the only way Japan would ever become a true power in the world, after seeing the display that Blackthorne put on during the blockade break. But then the scene ends with Blackthorne experiencing his very first baby earthquake, as Mariko puts it, as she explains that he will probably experience more as he is here, which perfectly foreshadows the big earthquake scene that is coming within the next few episodes. But next we see Ashiro's men, Jozen, arrive at Yabushige's camp, demanding that Yabushige return with him to Osaka and renew his fealty to the council, which will undoubtedly end in Yabushige's death. But luckily for Yabushige, he buys himself some much-needed time as he convinces Jozen to stay in camp for the night and witness the power and accuracy of the barbarians' cannons firsthand. And you definitely get the feeling that Yabushige senses the noose tightening around his neck as his options continue to get worse. He can either submit to the council and most likely be killed, or he could go on to side with Toranaga in a war that he believes Toranaga is on the losing side of. But next we see Blackthorne and Mariko continue to grow closer, as Mariko shares a little bit of her past with Blackthorne, and how a past tragedy caused her to lose everything, something that she is still coming to grips with even till this day it seems. But next we get a scene of what appears to be Mariko visiting Blackthorne at night for a little bit of pillowing, followed by Mariko trying to play it off like it was a random courtesan who visited Blackthorne the previous night and not herself. And even though the lighting was very dim, you can totally see that it was Mariko. But next, the episode ends with a bang, and I especially like the scene where Yabushige notices Blackthorne carrying swords and thinks it is a bad omen. Little does he know how right he is, as thanks to Omi gassing up Toranaga's son into thinking for himself, he pulls the unexpected and turns the cannons on Jozen and his men in the last second, killing all of them, kicking off what is undoubtedly going to be a long and bloody war. And now the stage is officially set as we move from political intrigue into all-out war, where things will undoubtedly only continue to escalate. Overall, it was definitely one of the slower-paced episodes, but had some really good character moments nonetheless, and the ending was absolutely phenomenal, as the stage is officially set for war. An episode that I would give a 7 out of 10 overall, as it was a little bit slow to start, but ended on a high note. And definitely let me know down in the comment section as well, where do you rank tonight's episode of Shogun? But that is going to do it for us today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit a like on your way out, and consider subscribing and hitting that bell for notifications to stay up to date on all of our upcoming Shogun content. And don't forget to come and join us live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our live Shogun Aftershow. And as always, I want to give a big thank you to everybody out there for watching, and a huge thank you to all of the channel members, and we will see you on the next one.